This is News Talk 980 CKNW.
Well, you know what? We talk so much about the cost of residential real estate on this show. It is one of my favorite subjects. But what about the commercial end of things? Does it make sense to lease or buy for your business? This is the CKNW Business Law Series with Boughton Law, and Serene Chow is in the studio. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So this is an interesting subject because it is not like just buying or renting a house.
It's completely different. I mean, you're not going to have people coming to your houses like you have customers coming to your space. You want to have a space that is targeted towards your customers. You might have a space that is, if you're retail, for an example, you want visibility. Or for an example, some of your clients might be tend to go to a certain convenient location. So lots of things that you're thinking about when it's a commercial space is different from if you're saying residential.
Mm-hmm. And so if you've got a company and your business is growing, this becomes a question you have to answer. Do I buy or do I lease?
Yes. And it's a business decision. It's a business deal. You have to think, what are you budgeting for your business? How much you want to commit to it. When you're buying something, it's a big investment into capital. But if you're leasing, there's a little bit of comparatively a more shorter term investment that you want to, I guess, put into the space of your business. So it's a little bit easier in that sense because you're not having to put up so much money into one space. But at the end of the day, it's all about your business plan.
And because we're talking about so much money and so many complicated legal things, I mean, you really need to get, first of all, a commercial realtor, not just an average residential realtor, right?
That's right. I mean, with commercial leasing, it's very different. What you look for in a space is different from residential. Like if you're residential, you're looking at area maybe for schools, for kids, for family living. But if you're talking about commercial now, that's different because you want to know, hey, where are my audience, my customers, which space, which location is good for me? How much am I paying for rent? How big of a space am I getting? Is there maybe an expansion space? If I want to grow out my space, I want to have a more long-term, so-called long-term stay at this location. What are the tenants around me getting? So these are things that commercial brokers or commercial realtors can tell you about.
And one of the other things you have to do right away is figure out which mortgage makes sense as well.
Absolutely. You have the space, you want to move into it, but you want to build it out, you want to make it your own. And that requires a lot of money. You might need to go to a bank, you need to talk to some mortgage brokers and see how you can fund that.
So many things you have to know about that the average person doesn't. So if you're running your own business, one of the things you need to know is, first of all, get a lawyer, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, that's the first thing you got to do. And you have to figure out if it makes sense to incorporate as well.
Yes, absolutely. So I think we had that in our last segment. And incorporation also kind of plays a role in commercial real estate too, because let's say on top of growing your business, you want to buy real estate. You want to buy a commercial property. Maybe it makes more sense to incorporate a company and have that hold your real estate. So a number of factors will play into that. And that's when you ask a lawyer and ask your business, your accountant and say, hey, is this something that I need to do? And that ties in with our last segment.
So for anyone who has a business and they're thinking, I don't know if I want to put down a huge amount of equity into purchasing real estate for my company, but maybe I'm looking at leasing. What are the legal aspects? What does a commercial leasing agent do for you?
I mean, they're one part of it, of course. They start the process, bring you to the spaces because they know what spaces are available for you to occupy as a tenant as opposed to buying, and show you around and then bring you those options. Now, they also start on the process of making the deals and negotiation with you and the landlord, perhaps, maybe the landlord's agent, as to, hey, what we're going to pay for the space, how much space is available, things of that sort. But that is one part of what they do. And they should also pair up and talk to a commercial leasing lawyer, because if you start that early, what happens is that with the brokerages or with the leasing agents, they kind of bring you the key business terms. But there are things when you start talking and negotiating, maybe wanting to look into the actual lease that the landlord standardly uses for their tenants. That's something that the lawyer can come in and negotiate and look for you, because there are things in there that you may want out that you don't even think were in.
Yeah, things like what? What do you have to watch out for?
Sometimes people think, oh, you know what? I pay certain amount of dollars for this space because it's a particular high level or it's got this visibility. then lo and behold, you have a lease agreement inside that's standard for the landlord, but have terms such as, oh, you can relocate, or I can give you a certain amount of days and I can move you out and demolish. Then all of a sudden, wait, the space that I wanted to have is different from what I thought it would be. So these are things where you might not be prompted to it when you first talk about the offer, but then a landlord will have those in their standard lease. And if a lawyer comes up and says, well, you know what, that's not the deal. If you get in early enough, you can kind of say, well, what are the things I want out and what are the things I want in?
Yeah, you have to be so careful because you can make a really expensive mistake. Let's talk about the legal aspects of purchasing commercial real estate. What do we need to know?
Well, same thing. Go to a lawyer and also have the right agent representing you, because they also bring you the options of what spaces is available, because those are for commercial units, and the agents would be the one that has kind of the information on what's out there. And then with the lawyer, because now deals are structured differently. When you're buying commercial real estate, it can be structured in a way of just buying the asset. So you're saying, I like this property, I like this space, I'm going to put in an offer for this particular property. And then there are some that you're buying up now shares. There's been talks about if you're buying a company shares, that is a way of acquiring real estate. And it is, because you might be acquiring a company shares and the company holds the real estate. And then that way, the contract is also structured differently and the tax consequences will be different. So it's good to start it right off the bat, right, rather than going down one path, having it done one way, and then have to restructure and renegotiate the contract.
Yeah, I mean, super important, especially in a city like this, where nothing is cheap, right?
Yes, absolutely. With real estate, especially, sky high now.
Okay, well, very interesting. Thanks so much for joining us, Serene.
Thank you so much for having me.
That is Serene Chow from CKNW's Business Law Series with Boughton Law. Very interesting, man. If you think buying a home is expensive in the city, how about buying commercial property for your business? Yikes, don't want to make any mistakes there. Coming up.
So the fine will be $368. That's up from the $167 previous fine that we had here.
I think you may have heard BC has some new tough penalties for distracted driving, and it doesn't stop with just the ticket. We're going to talk about that next.
Vancouver's News, Vancouver's Talk. This is News Talk 980, CKNW.